Okay, guys, welcome to another King Tut Productions video. Today we're gonna make a really special video. I have an immigration attorney, Dennis Judan, with me today. He specializes in immigration law in the Philippines. He's helped hundreds of clients before, and it's really a privilege to have him. And he's gonna be answering some questions about immigration. And I have some pre-prepared questions, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about what to do insofar as Philippine immigration goes. And he also has a book. Dennis, if you want to go ahead and hold that book up, it's
Well,
yeah.
good morning, Cameron. First of all, thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the book. I don't know if you can see it on your screen. It's
Yep.
entitled Philippine Visas and Work Permits, a quick guide to Philippine immigration.
Okay.
It's the only condensed, convenient, and comprehensive guide right now to Philippine visas and work permits. So you might find that useful. It's available online on Amazon, and it started to become available in National Bookstore. In another 2 weeks, it will be in all National Bookstore branches nationwide.
Yeah, and I gotta tell
Okay.
you, it's a really good book because if you go to the BI's website itself, it's really hard sometimes to get the information that you need. So this is in a condensed form and good English, and so I mean, it has pretty much anything almost any foreigner would need, insofar as Philippine immigration. So Dennis, why don't you go ahead and start us by telling us a little bit about the Bureau of Immigration itself and how it's structured and things like that.
Well, okay. So as many of you know, it's the Bureau of Immigration which has the primary responsibility for regulating the entry, the stay, and the departure of foreign nationals from the Philippines. So how is it organized? Basically, there is a head office or a main office located in Intramuros, Manila, where all kinds of transactions are handled. And there are several types of offices found all over the Philippines. There are, well, no need to dwell on the actual meaning, but there are district offices, satellite offices, extension offices, and what they call the one-stop shops. So the satellite offices, for example, the one in SM Aura in BGC, that's a big one. There's another one in Mactan in Cebu, and there's another one in SM North EDSA. So these satellite offices handle basically most of what the head office handles. There are field offices. These tend to be the ones in the provinces, and these basically handle just your 9A temporary visitor visa extensions. The rest they forward to the main office. The extension offices are found basically in two places. That is in the Philippine Export Zone Authority, or PEZA, offices, just to make it more convenient for PEZA companies to process their visas. And the other one would be in the Board of Investments. So that's BOI, not BI. And it's for the same reason. I remember telling you about the confusion about the BOI and the BI. So it's the BI when you're talking about the Bureau of Immigration. And finally, there are the one-stop shops. These are in Clark, these are in Subic, and I think there's another one in Mariveles, Bataan for the free port of Bataan. So that's basically how the BI is organized geographically. So if you're to focus then on the head office, well, many of you may be familiar when you go there to extend your tourist visa or 9A temporary visitor visa, maybe to file your annual report or to process your ACR card. And for those who are working, yes, they do process working visas like the 9G and the 47A2.
Okay, great. And let me ask you this though. So, one of the things that a lot of foreigners kind of get confused about is there's certain offices that do certain things. So, for example, when you get your exit clearance, I was talking to one guy and he said he went to his BI office and they said, "Oh no, we don't do it here. You'd have to go to another office." So, which ones will give you your exit clearance? Well, first of all, let's talk about what the exit clearance is, and then let's talk about where they can get it.
Okay, the excuse me, the exit clearance, actually the formal name is the Immigration Clearance Certificate, or ECC,
Mm-hmm.
but more popularly known as the exit clearance, is required for all foreign nationals who have stayed in the Philippines for more than 6 months. So if you're on a working visa here, typically you will need to get that. Even if you were on a tourist visa but kept on extending past 6 months, you will have to get that. So what is the ECC basically? It's basically a certification that you don't owe any fees to the BI, the government, prior to your departure. So you can get that at the head office, definitely. It takes 1 or 2 days to process it. And in urgent cases, urgent but meritorious cases, in the airport itself, like in the NAIA. So as I was mentioning earlier, the BI's offices are scattered all over the Philippines. There's something like 80 of all types. And you can imagine that not all of them are equipped to handle all types of transactions. So that is why your friend was referred to another office. So if when all that fails, you can go to the head office if you're in. So, although the problem if you get it at the airport, if there are issues, you could miss your flight. And in fact, that's the common problem. If you don't have an ECC, you won't be allowed to board.
Yeah, that was big. So, yeah, how long does it take to get it at the airport, and what are some of the meritorious reasons that they would do it at the airport?
Well, if it's at the airport, maybe you just simply forgot, and you're not on a working visa, for example. They may allow you to process and pay for it there. It's not really that hard. But if there are issues in your immigration status, then they might refer you to the head office. In which case, that takes a minimum of 1 or 2 days. You're not going to be able to board your flight. So
Wow.
avoid the inconvenience and process that beforehand.
So is it the district offices? Like, what level of office do you need to go to that can handle that? Is there like a specific level?
Well, the head office, the satellite offices will be able to handle that. The other types of offices, it would depend. Again, not so much on the category of the office, but on the infrastructure and staff that are there.
So it just depends on
They
each
cannot,
office.
yes, I cannot give a general rule right now. And if I say in all these types of offices you can do it, you really have to see whether the particular BI office near you processes that. And
Oh,
if you
okay.
want to check, you could call the main office itself.
Okay, well, because I had one issue, because when I was living in Dasmariñas, I tried to get and this is actually moving on to about the long-term extension, the 6-month visa. They wouldn't do it for me at the Dasmariñas office, and they told me because their main person, the head of the office, didn't want to. So do they have that kind of discretion that they can just decide what they want to do and what they don't?
Well, with respect to that, yes, they do. Remember, right, you're applying to extend basically your tourist visa for a long period. So that's called the LSVV, long stay visitor visa extension, which is a way of extending your 9A visa up to 6 months instead of just 1 or 2 months, which can be inconvenient if you keep on going back to the BI. But
Yeah.
you have to remember that that is a tourist visa, and for you to apply for a 6 month extension is unusual. So
Really? Okay.
it's not something that I'm here for tourism and I'd like to extend 6 months. It would raise some red flags. Why are you staying so long? I mean, you're welcome, but if you're staying that long, how are you going to support yourself? Where will you live? So that's why it's not actually automatic. Although in practice, they're quite liberal about that. So it is within their discretion to not to grant that. And in your particular case, maybe if not there, the main office also tries to supervise these offices outside in the provinces or wherever. So you don't want every office to be able to issue every type of visa or permit. Otherwise, you may find out that in this particular office they're just issuing LSVVEs left and right. It's also a control or mechanism for the BI.
Okay. So now I want to talk to you about blacklisting. So one thing I heard was there was this guy, and he's another vlogger, and he said that he was in the Dumaguete office, and this guy was being a little bit belligerent. I guess he was frustrated, and so the guy said, "This is stupid." And he says some guy comes out from the back, marks something on his passport, and says, "Sir, you're blacklisted. You have 30 days to leave the country." Can they? Is that actually something that they can do?
Yes, they can. For one thing, that person was being very disrespectful. You have to remember, foreign nationals are visitors here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Filipinos are very hospitable, but there's only so much they'll take. Open disrespect like that, this is not the U.S., for example, where there is a certain, I guess, level of venting that is tolerated. And if you do something like that, even though you quickly apologize or regret it, if the people you offended, they have the discretion to do that. So just be very, very careful and circumspect about how you behave in front of these immigration officials. So
So
actually, in that particular case, I probably would have blacklisted him too if
yeah,
I were in the immigration officer. Although that's not the worst case I've heard about. I
really.
mean, what did he say again? He said,
He said, "Oh, this is stupid."
okay, that's bad, but it's not the worst I've heard of. I mean, you've had foreign nationals venting all sorts of unspeakable words in NAIA, for example, and they're promptly um, asked to leave, boarded on the next plane back to their port of origin.
So that does happen.
It does.
Okay, well, and I just want to make sure it's clear. Like people, in America, yes, we have freedom of speech, but that doesn't necessarily apply to foreign nationals in America either. So, I mean, I just want to make it clear. You go to an INS office or UCIS office in America and be rude to the agents and see what happens to you. Especially if you're not a citizen.
Let me give you another example. This is fairly recent. It was brought to my attention.
Hmm.
There's this foreign national who arrived. I guess he was tired, and then there was a few immigration lanes available when he arrived, and he was complaining. Why don't you open another counter? Okay, but he got so belligerent that okay, there you go, blacklisted. Bye bye. Well, he didn't even get past the immigration section.
Wow. And so,
I mean, it's not it's just a matter of simple courtesy and respect.
yeah, sometimes foreigners mistake the Philippine kindness for weakness, and so they think that because they're so kind that they're going to just let them just walk all over them. And I try to let these guys know it's like we are guests in this country, and so we have to act in a way according to that. And like I said, even in the U.S., be rude to those CBP agents at the airport if you're not a citizen, and see what happens to you. Even if you have a visa, because there was a guy who's from Argentina, and he was he thought that he'd get away with it because he had a 10-year visa to America, and he had an attitude. This was back when George Bush was president, giving his opinion on the president and all that stuff, and much to not anyone else's surprise, but to his, he didn't get past the airport in America.
Well, there is something I'd like to mention. Uh, it's important to remember the fact that you were issued a visa doesn't mean you'll be allowed in. Okay, so it's up to the immigration officers at the port of entry to determine whether, based on your documents, your passport, a valid visa, how you behave, if they suspect that you're here to, other than for the purpose that you applied for the visa, they can still prevent you. So it's not an assurance. I think that's the same rule in the U.S. I have a U.S. visa. I was there late last year, but being an immigration lawyer here, I was assured, if there's some red flags that they spot, that they would deny me entry, and legally that's valid.
That's their job. So but no, the way I like to describe it to people is a visa gives you the right to knock on the door, but it doesn't give you the right to go in.
Yes, I would call it's a conditional permission to enter a country. It's conditioned on, upon your arrival, still going to assess whether they should let you in. I think that's the general rule everywhere. Now, this is even if you are technically not required to have a visa. Like there are so many countries that don't that the Philippines allows to go here without an entry visa, but the immigration officer can still decide not to let you in.
So, what are some of the most common reasons that an immigration officer would let someone from a visa waiver country decline to allow them entry?
Well, there are a number of things. For example, there may be some doubt about your passport. Maybe you're in their database for some reason. Maybe a offense here, or maybe even abroad. Someone complained about you. Any number of reasons. One common one is if they suspect that your real intention in going here is to either work or permanently reside here. And if they see that, even though you're just on you know, uh, your ostensible purpose is tourism. So there are certain nationalities that are kind of vulnerable to this kind of assessment. I
Yeah.
won't mention
Yeah,
them
I
here,
know
but
what you're talking about. Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, but not but for Americans and Europeans and stuff, I mean, what are some of the most common reasons they may be turned away?
Uh, it doesn't happen all that often, except
Yeah.
for that what you mentioned, discourtesy, arrogance, and that will quickly get you barred from entering. That's the most common one, actually.
Okay. And so now let's assume someone did get blacklisted. What would they need to do to get off that blacklist?
Well, it depends. There are certain blacklists. For example, if you overstay, that's not well. That's an offense, but it's not that serious unless you've stayed for so many years beyond your authorized stay. But the procedure basically is to write to the Bureau of Immigration, specifically the commissioner, asking that the blacklist be lifted. And there's sometimes they grant that, sometimes they don't. I can tell you if it's discourtesy or arrogance, they very rarely reconsider that.
Really?
So yeah, so yeah, of course, depending on how serious the incident was, and of course, if the foreign national is very apologetic in his letter, that might be considered. But yeah, that would be the procedure. You basically write the Bureau of Immigration. Of course, this is harder if you're abroad trying to get here. You'll have to get, um, probably need to get someone here to write on your behalf.
So do you just? I mean, because you can't just write a simple letter that says, "Please let me off the blacklist." There has to be more to it than that.
Yes. Basically, explanation. No, I'm so and so. Excuse me. I proceeded to the Philippines so and so date. This is what happened. And if in the case, for example, if there's a clash with the immigration officer, there's I'm sorry, but I wasn't. Just an explanation and be contrite, and then see.
Mm-hmm.
But again, there's being granted entry into a country is a privilege.
Yep.
So even if even under the best of circumstances, it could be denied.
So okay, now another thing, a question I got a lot was, oh, my ex
No,
GF for.
I have all day, Cameron, since you just interrupted my vacation. I'm very comfortable here. So what they call this, even if we do this often,
Yeah,
that's okay.
a
Take your
question,
time.
and a question I got a lot was from people, especially guys, was like, "Oh, my ex GF threatened to have me deported. Should I take? What do I do?" So we've talked about this before, but just what I mean, what would happen? For example, the ex GF threatened to have them deported. I mean, what should they do most of the time?
Okay, excuse me. Well, that actually happens quite often. Um, Strictly speaking, that's not a deportable offense. Okay, if your documents are in order, now you really don't need to worry about that. It's just your girlfriend or boyfriend, as the case may be, venting and trying to scare you. Having said that, there are some instances where perhaps your girlfriend is someone who, well, has some influence,
Mm-hmm.
is very politically well connected. I mean, it's a reality. And it just might get you on the blacklist somehow, but these are exceptional cases. If I were, foreign national, I wouldn't panic. Now, of course, this is unless there is another reason that they should be concerned about their immigration status. For example, they're conducting business here without the proper permits.
Mm-hmm.
They're working here without the proper permits. That's different because if the girlfriend or the boyfriend should file a case, the Bureau of Immigration just might look a little more deeply, and something which your boyfriend or girlfriend didn't intend to expose you for ends up resulting in just that.
So if it does happen, it depend and getting off that blacklist, it just depends on what she managed to get you on the blacklist for.
Again, sorry.
So if she is someone of political influence and she manages to get you on the blacklist, is it, is there a specific way to get off the blacklist, or do you still have to write a letter and just pray?
No, it's the same procedure. And let me qualify that. I'm not saying that this happens often, not at all, but I have heard of such cases. And I look at the documents of the case and wonder how and why this foreign national was blacklisted. And you get a background story. Maybe there is a business dispute or something else. But I don't want to give the impression that this is something which is done so easily. So in the vast majority of cases, even the overwhelming majority of cases, these are basically empty threats. Just
Okay. All right. Well, no,
it's just
I agree. They're just angry and trying to scare you. So speaking of work, I actually wanted to go and talk about work permits. So it's really important to know, like, when you get a 9G visa, that's not enough. You need a 9G visa and an additional work permit on top of that. Is that correct?
yes, actually you need an alien employment permit from the Department of Labor and Employment, and AEP, as it is called, is actually a prerequisite when you apply for the 9G. So you
Okay.
can't even apply for the 9G without the AEP.
Now, can you get the work permit while you're on your tourist visa?
Well, you should apply for it while you're on your tourist visa.
Yeah,
So remember, if you're on a tourist visa, you're not allowed to work. That would be a violation of the
the visa.
conditions of your visa. So if you're, let's say, a local company um, wants to hire you, then there is a process. One of the main components of which is to apply for the AEP while you have your 9-8 visa. So the AEP is not a visa; it's a work permit.
Mm-hmm.
It's based labor law and not immigration law. So after you get that, then you can apply for the 9G with the Bureau of Immigration.
Okay, and how long is that visa good for?
Oh, that depends. The 9G visa can be good for 1 year, 2 years, in some instances, even 3 years. So, but 1 year, 2 years is typical.
Okay, now
And
can you?
normally, just to add, the when you apply for an AEP, it can be anywhere from 1 to 3 years. So, if let's say the Department of Labor and Employment issues an AEP valid for 2 years, it is the practice of the BI to match the validity period of the 9G visa with that of the AEP. So
That's good.
there's no gap.
Can you?
So
Yeah, sorry.
if you want to apply for a longer period, start with the in the AEP.
Can you? Okay, now would it? Can you start your own company and then give yourself a work permit?
That's actually possible, but not there are a number of only a number of industries where you can do that. Yes, it is possible that you, for example, you are one of several investors in a company that's going to be put up here, and you want to apply under that company because, for example, you have certain expertise that cannot be filled in by qualified Filipinos here, for example. Then yes, you can. Okay, that's actually possible.
Okay. And the next thing I want to talk about is the 13A, the spousal visa. Would you mind telling them a little bit about how that works and what is needed to get it? And another thing that I've seen some guys try and do, and I already know the answer, but is that if you're an overstayer, can you get a 13A visa to remedy that problem?
Okay. You might be creating a bigger problem to remedy that small problem. That may not be advisable. But anyway, a 13A visa is a permanent resident visa. It's an immigrant visa that can be issued to foreign nationals who are validly married to a Filipino citizen. But there are conditions. So number one, there has to be what you call a reciprocity agreement between the Philippines and the foreign nationals country that grants similar privileges to Filipino citizens. There has to be a formal agreement. And then of course you already have to be married. Okay, so there's no such thing as a fiance visa
That's
in
good
the
to know.
Philippines.
It's
You
not
can't
like
say,
America. Yeah.
oh, if she's my fiance, then I'd like to bring her here, him or her here, so we can get married. There's no such thing here. You have to be validly married already. So, and then you apply jointly with the BI. Now, there are two stages. One is, um, there's a probationary stage. Now, before I get to that, basically, the BI has to be convinced that the marriage was, entered into, for well, legitimate purposes, the usual, and it's not being resorted to as a way of uh, getting an immigrant visa or otherwise evading Philippine immigration regulations. So, to put it romantically, the BI has to be convinced about your love story. So when you apply for the 13A visa, you have to you have to explain how you met, how long you've known each other, how when did you get married, if there are children. So the longer the relationship has been existing, and the more proof by way of pictures and whatnot that you can present, the better your chances are of being granted that. The BI is very suspicious of I met him or her through Facebook, and then it was love at first sight. It's time to get married. Yeah, tell that to the Marines. Now anyway, um, so they have to be convinced about that. But even if they are, you're actually issued what is called a probationary 13A visa. So you say, okay, this visa is 13A visa is valid for 1 year. Before, in the case of some nationalities, it could be up to 5 years.
Wow.
So what is the reason for this probationary period? The BI wants to check because at the end of that probationary period, you have to show up again at the Bureau of Immigration. And then if they see that they're still validly married, you're living together, and then that 13A visa can now be made permanent. What is the BI trying to avoid? Well, it's called sham marriages. Wherein foreign nationals get married. Sometimes they get married to a Philippine citizen just to get the immigrant visa, and they actually may get married, assuming they don't attempt to present forged documents, but they never see each other after the marriage ceremony.
Does that actually
So
happen a
that's
lot in the Philippines?
or yes, you would have
Really?
nationals come here sometimes even in groups, and then they would come here and then get married, quote unquote, apply for the 13A visa, and they never see it. They never see the Philippine spouse again. So that is why the BI is on the lookout for that.
Yeah.
Now I said that's a 13A visa, but there are actually three types of shall we say marriage visas available.
Oh.
The second one is what we call the permanent resident visa, and the third is the temporary resident visa. What's the difference? In the case of again of a 13A visa, there is a reciprocity agreement between the Philippines and the foreign nationals country, granting similar privileges to Philippine citizens. In the case of a permanent resident visa, like for example, I think South Korea, maybe even China, there is no formal agreement, but that the foreign nationals country still grants that privilege. It's
Oh.
just that it's not embodied in an agreement. So how is this established? Well, for example, the ambassador from that country writes our Department of Foreign Affairs saying, "Oh, our country actually grants these privileges even though we don't have a formal agreement." So that is enough. The BI will take note of that, and they can issue you a PRV. But it's not a 13A visa. But it's essentially the same. They just don't
Okay.
call it a 13A visa. The third type is what we call the temporary resident visa. So you can see how considerate the Philippines is.
Yeah.
In the case of a TRV, there is no formal reciprocity agreement between the Philippines and the foreign nationals country, and the country doesn't even grant similar privileges to Filipino citizens. So why
Wow.
would you issue them any type of marriage visa? Well, the justification is, you don't want to break family ties. You
Mm.
know how strong family ties are here in the Philippines. So the thinking is, okay, notwithstanding that, we might still issue you a temporary resident visa, but it's normally, I think it's up to, I think, 5 years. So there is actually a way to get, if you are validly married.
Don't a lot of Saudis
There,
and stuff get that visa?
sorry.
Don't a lot of Saudis and Kuwaitis get that visa?
I'm not sure, but TRVs, well, the most common applicants are Indian nationals.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Indian nationals, yes, and some Arab nationals, yes. That's correct.
Okay. All right. And then, so the main thing we wanted. So those are the most important things: the work permit. Let's see, we covered that. Oh, I just have a totally nerdy question because I like to research and stuff. Why is the Bureau of Immigration under the Department of Justice instead of the Department of Foreign Affairs?
That's a good question. If you actually, ask the Bureau of Immigration, there's a long history wherein that body was basically, you know, um, shuffled under various departments throughout its history. So it's I can't give a reason other than a bureaucratic one. So yeah,
I've just always wondered about that because I always just assumed it was under DFA, but no, it's under the Department of Justice.
yeah. So yeah, for example, in the U.S., I think your visas are handled by what's the
Department of
Department of
State.
State.
Department of
Yeah,
State.
so that would be the DFA here, but no. Well, technically, let me put it this way: the visas are actually, um, if you think about it, for example, the entry visas, the 9A visas, they're handled by the DFA. I mean, if you can apply for a 9A entry visa in a Philippine embassy or consulate abroad. So in that sense, they do handle that. But when you arrive here, the DFA simply, its focus is outside and not here. So since the Bureau of Immigration has been, in its long history, has been the one really handling this. So I guess that's how that evolved. But that's an interesting point, a nerdy one, but okay.
Yeah, yeah, I'm a legal nerd. Okay, well, I will. I'm sure he's busy. He's on vacation, so I just want to thank you very much, Mr. Judan. Go
All
ahead
right.
and you could show your book, and you should did the book and make sure you guys
Oh,
take it. And it's a really good book. Was there anything
okay.
else that you wanted to add for foreigners who are trying to, who may have immigration questions? And what kind of services do you usually help foreigners with?
Okay. So first of all, I'll show the book again. It's the title of the book is Philippine Visas and Work Permits by yours truly, Dennis Joseph Judan. And it is a concise, convenient, complete guide for, especially for foreign nationals who have Philippine immigration concerns. You can get this online through our website or through Amazon for those of you who are abroad,
And I'll put
and
a link in the
also
description.
traditional bookstore. Yeah, so it's in the description. And then, okay, what else? Well, my firm, Judan Law Offices, one of our major practice areas is immigration, Philippine immigration specifically. And I get these questions all the time. So we basically assist foreign nationals and their companies in processing Philippine visas and work permits, whatever that may be. And also citizenship applications, which is related. Um, Before going, I'd just like to give a piece of advice to our foreign nationals in the Philippines or thinking of coming here. Um, just obey the rules, the regulations. Specifically, keep your 9A visa updated. Don't overstay, because if you overstay, then you could be blacklisted, you could be deported, and it's much harder to remedy that. If you get to that point,
They're really starting to
provided
crack down on that too.
yeah. So don't be afraid. Just continually update your immigration status, and if there are problems, then you can tell Cameron, he'll tell me, or you can contact me directly.
Okay. And so, by the way, he's a really good attorney. He always answers a lot of questions for me. So, you guys, if you have a problem. Oh, one more thing I want to say. If you think you may have been blacklisted, check before you go because you don't want your plane ticket to be Sayang. So, you really, that's actually one of the things you can contact Mr. Judan or someone else. And it's much better just to contact, someone like Mr. Judan, have them check for you than to just waste all that money on a plane ticket if you are blacklisted. And then when you're deported, you have to buy the plane ticket going back home. They don't pay for it. Is that
Yes,
correct?
correct.
So one thing I did want to know, what happens if they send you back and you don't have the money to buy another plane ticket?
Well, what do you call? They may still send you out anyway. It's probably more expensive to detain you at immigration, but uh, normally you are asked to pay for it, or you maybe ask someone who you know to pay for it, because the alternative is, well, possibly detention.
What's it called? Biktukan?
Bikutan. Now it's
Bikutan.
the detention facility of the Bureau of Immigration is located in Bikutan.
Yeah, and you don't want to be there.
Otherwise, known as immigration jail.
Yeah, and you don't want to be
You
there.
don't want to go there. You don't even want to talk about it. I mean, don't put yourself in a situation where that's even relevant.
Yeah, exactly. Well, okay. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Judan, for your time. And again, check out his book and make sure you subscribe to my channel and you get all your Philippines questions answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.